Thanks, Lucy, and thank you, Women's Place UK. I'm delighted to have this opportunity and to sharing the stage with some amazing women. I think I've been OBE'd and MBE'd out. and also to share this wonderful venue with you. It's good to see old friends and new friends as well, so thank you for that. I'm going to talk about my campaign for justice, and then I also want to highlight the issue of how the legal system and free speech are being weaponized to silence women. She gave as good as she got. 7 words you don't say to a survivor of domestic abuse. Yet this is what a British judge told me in a family court hearing in 2017. The High Court was the final battleground of a complex legal case which has consumed over 10 years of my life and played out in the courtrooms of Dubai, France, and the UK. In April 2011, I was living in Dubai. When my marriage broke down, my ex-husband changed the locks on our house, and I was homeless in a foreign country with a 12-month-old baby to look after. Without access to shelter, food, money, and support networks, I was left in a state of destitution. I had reported earlier incidents of domestic violence to the Dubai police, but they dismissed them. At that time, UAE law allowed violence against women so long as there are no marks left. Over the next couple of years, I faced constant harassment, arbitrary detention, and arrests. At one time, baby Louis and I were thrown into a prison cell and left to stew for 6 hours in 40-degree heat. I was forced to go into hiding until my ex-husband found out where we were living and took Louis from the local playground. Louis was only 3.5 years old. I had been his sole carer from the time he was born. I remember thinking it must have been so bewildering for him. What I didn't know at that time was that my ex-husband had been granted an Islamic divorce and an order giving him full custody. My ex-husband is a white French Catholic man. The divorce stated disobedience to my husband, inability to breastfeed, gay friends, and clubbing. These were all the grounds that made me an unfit mother. I lost faith in the local authorities and the British Embassy, whose role it is to protect British citizens. My ex-husband then unleashed a tsunami of litigation against me. He was wealthy, he had friends in the local police, 2 of them were actual witnesses in the divorce. I was found guilty of kidnapping my own child. And the only reason I was spared jail was because of the media attention. So in early 2014, I returned home to Britain without Louis. It was a heartbreaking decision, but I was left with no choice. I had exhausted all the appeals, and once again, I was facing imprisonment because of my public criticism of the UAE. My ex-husband had filed further defamation cases, the first of many. The prospect of not seeing Louis until he was 18 left me bereft with grief and marked the beginning of a David and Goliath legal battle. Back in the UK, as you can imagine, adjusting to life was a daily struggle. Before Dubai, I had a successful career, a high-profile job in the senior civil service, and led a pretty normal and comfortable life. I was diagnosed with PTSD, and there were days when all I would think about was how I wanted to go to sleep and not wake up. But I was determined to fight this injustice for me, for Louis, and for other women who may find themselves in a similar position. I started campaigning about the lack of protection for women facing domestic abuse abroad. I managed to secure pro bono help from good lawyers, because as we know, there's good and there's a lot of bad lawyers around. And together with the support of South All Black sisters, I launched a legal case to try and have the UAE divorce overturned and be reunited with Louis. I put my faith in the British justice system, but I was wrong to do so. Despite winning a landmark court case in France, which found the UAE court decision to be manifestly discriminatory, the High Court rejected the French decision and rubber-stamped the Sharia divorce. A British judge, after Googling UAE law, concluded that the religious personal laws of the UAE were similar to our British family divorce law. Justice Mostyn, and yes, I'm going to call him out, Justice Mostyn's personal comments about me fed into the popular misogynistic tropes that there are around women like myself. He said that I didn't look like a victim of depression and coercive control. There were several references to my educational background and my ability to manipulate and exaggerate details. I lost the case and all the subsequent appeals, but I did get a promise that Louis could visit the UK for a total of 6 hours a year to spend time with me in a supervised contact centre. And if that wasn't enough, the judge exercised his discretion and ordered me to pay my ex-husband's substantial legal costs, which is extremely rare in family cases. I felt as if I was being buried alive. Whilst the family case was going on, my ex-husband launched libel proceedings against a number of British newspapers who had reported my story. He succeeded, and in doing so, he effectively silenced me from speaking out. The Lachaux libel has created a chilling effect on the reporting of domestic abuse and has implications for public interest reporting and free speech. In their seminal book, How Many More Women?, leading feminist barristers Jen Robinson and Kina Yoshida cast a forensic examination of the defamation laws across the globe through the lens of high-profile cases and survivor stories. My case is in that book, and so is Amber Heard, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. There's been a wave of cases in which survivors of domestic abuse have either been threatened with or faced libel actions. This reflects a global trend in which survivors, advocacy groups, academics, and journalists have found themselves caught up in a vortex of expensive litigation. I spoke about this at a Centre for Women's Justice event in 2019. The situation has got much worse, with contagion spreading to other areas of public life, in which women are losing their jobs, their reputations, and livelihoods for speaking out against male violence. The law has been weaponized by wealthy and powerful men. Women are being silenced by those who seek to diminish and deny us our free speech. But we're fighting back. Our libel laws are broken and they need fixing. It's a rigged system that puts the reputation and privacy of wealthy men above the protection and safety of women. I will continue to name and shame and campaign for changes to our libel laws. This type of litigation should be recognised as economic abuse. I was devastated by the judgment in my case. The judge had gone out of his way to denigrate and victim blame me. And although I felt like I had lost everything, the one thing they couldn't take is my voice and what I had achieved. I won a landmark case in the Supreme Court in France to protect the rights of women. I've changed Foreign Office advice for British women travelling to the Gulf to help protect them from discrimination. And in 2019, I jointly won the Emma Humphreys Prize for improving access to justice for women, which I'm very proud of. Thank you. I refuse to be silenced. I started my career in the early 90s working on issues relating to women's safety. I led the UK's first hate crime task force and prosecuted perpetrators of domestic violence. I worked on the early drafts of the Equality Act, which sought to protect women's sex-based rights. I find it, therefore, profoundly depressing that 30 years on, 2 women a week are killed by a current or former partner. It's just chilling. It's very, very chilling to think of that. Not a day goes by without a grim headline about the tragic and needless death of innocent women. According to a recent report by the Charities Aid Foundation, 27% of Britons donated to animal welfare charities, making it the most popular cause. We care more about cats and dogs in this country than we do about protecting women's lives. But we can change that. On International Women's Day and every day, let's remember to support each other, support women's rights groups, stand up and defend your right to free speech. And remember, every win is a win for those who do not have a voice and who cannot fight. Women and girls deserve to live a life free from fear and violence. Thank you for listening. And I also want to thank Women's Place UK and many of you here for supporting me through what was a very difficult time. Thank you.